Hey friends, I've been making edibles for over 10 years now, and I still get questions I've never heard before. And that's what I love about this community and doing this show. You keep me on my toes, really. So here's what's happening. In a couple months, I'm doing a listener Q&A episode, and I want your questions. I haven't done a Q&A in about 3 years. The weird ones, the basic ones, the ones you've been too embarrassed to ask, the ones you've Googled 3 times and you still don't really have a clear answer. All of it is fair game. Maybe you've been trying to nail your dosing and it's just not clicking. Maybe you've got a batch that went sideways and you want to know why. Maybe you're just curious about something you've heard on the show and you want to go deeper. Maybe you're curious about Bite Me itself. Ask me. You can send a voice message if you want to hear your own voice on the show, or just drop your question in writing. Either way works. The link to submit is in the show notes, and I appreciate you for listening and for being a part of this community. And I really appreciate you trusting me with your questions. Stay curious and stay high, friends. Now let's get into today's episode. Welcome, friends, to episode 362. And today we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to be doing a Bite Me update. A friend is traveling at the time of this recording in France, and she sent me the picture of a restaurant that she spotted called Mange. And of course, I had to share this in the Bite Me Cannabis Club because, of course, if you translate that, Mange translates to bite me. I'm also learning German, so Beiß Mich is the German translation. And somehow neither of them seem to have quite the same ring to it. Friends, we're not doing a recipe episode and there's not an interview. It's just me catching you up on where things are headed. And also because it's in midsummer right now and I just felt like I needed a bit of a break. I have family coming to the house this weekend to celebrate some birthdays. My father and niece both share the same birthday. One is turning 13 and the other is turning 95. So we have a couple of milestones that we're celebrating. So I'll be getting ready for that. And I'm just trying to enjoy these gorgeous days of summer because I know all too soon there'll be a distant memory. I just want to be more present. So I thought it would be a good time to update all of you on what's been going on. I just want to say thank you for all the listeners who are tuning into the show. If this is your first time dropping in, well, this one isn't a typical episode, but it will give you a gist for, the kinds of things that are going on. And if you've been here for a while, I so appreciate you because none of this would exist if I didn't have folks out there listening to me talk. And boy, do I love to talk. That's one thing I definitely inherited from my mother is a love of talking, but also an interest in people and a curiosity about the world. And I'm pretty sure that most of you are here with me because you share some of those same characteristics. So let's get into it, friends. The club has moved from the Circle platform where it lived for a while to my website, bitemepodcast.com. And I'm really excited about this move because of what it means, really. Circle was great. There was a lot of things I really liked about it. There were a lot of things I didn't like about it. And one of it was the limitations. One, you paid an awful lot of money for access to this community platform that you didn't really own in the end. Even trying to pull data from it after I decided to migrate the club elsewhere was quite difficult. You couldn't export any of the media, which was a huge disadvantage. I found workarounds, but you never really owned it, if you know what I mean. You were kind of like renting a platform in which a community lived. Moving over to WordPress means I have full control over the experience, over the information, how it works, how it lives. And that's a big advantage because I was also able to buy the software outright. And if you know me, and you've probably heard me talk about it before on this show, the world of subscriptions is just getting kind of insane. It feels like everything's a subscription now. So the Circle platform had a subscription and it wasn't inexpensive. And then when you hit the limits of that particular subscription, to move up to the next tier was a huge jump financially that just didn't make any sense. And I'm sure I wasn't the only community member or Circle user rather that felt that way. I actually know a few people that were on Circle that migrated their communities away from it. And that's sort of what inspired me to do it in the first place, because I met a fellow through another community that I'm in who has a club that's very different than mine, but he also migrated to this WordPress environment because he had a WordPress site already as well. So just having that control over the community and the experience was really important to me, because it also meant that I could enable even more privacy amongst the community members, because even though there's many of us that are in legal jurisdictions, there's several of us that are not in the community. And even if you are, does that necessarily mean you want to go broadcasting your cannabis usage from the mountaintops? Not necessarily. I am reminded from time to time how much stigma is still associated with cannabis. And it's easy for me to forget because I do this podcast. I write a newsletter about cannabis. I'm interviewing people about cannabis who are working in the cannabis industry. I have the club. I am immersed in the cannabis space. And at the end of the day, I can be sure when it's on the WordPress platform that I know what I'm doing with that data. Could I say the same for Circle? Now, there are, of course, some features that existed in Circle that don't quite exist yet in this new community platform, but there's workarounds for all of them. And the cool thing is that the developers have a community. So I'm part of the developers platform community, if that makes sense. And it's really cool to have access to the people who are actively working on the code behind the community. Great to have that kind of access that I just also didn't have with Circle, because you can see what other folks who are running communities as well are looking for as part of their experience. Because there's plenty of people who have come from all kinds of community platforms, not just Circle. So that's another advantage of the move, is just the access. And some of the things, there's been a few hiccups, of course, and nothing like this. It was a big project, ever goes completely smoothly, but the support from the developers has been top notch. So that's been kind of fun. And there's a couple other features that I'll be adding that will make it feel a lot more like the old space, but I think generally speaking, it does. Of course, one of the other things that I have that I didn't have before is I don't have the same limitations. Like I remember at one point with the old Circle platform, I could have 20 spaces. And that sounds like a lot, and it is. And I'm trying not to build too many spaces so that people are overwhelmed in the club. But at one point in the old club, I hit that max, and then I had to start combining spaces, because if I wanted to have more, I had to pay a whole lot more money. And that just didn't make any sense. But now I don't have any of those limitations. If I wanted to have 100 spaces, I could. So limitations like that are no longer an issue. And also because I'm not paying monthly, the fact that I don't charge subscriptions for the community either makes also a lot more sense, because it didn't feel right. I know I need to earn a living, but at the end of the day, I am actively and consistently removing subscriptions from my life wherever possible. It didn't make sense to then turn around and charge members for a subscription. And I'm finding privacy-focused plugins for the community so that we can build a sovereign space. What does it change for members day to day? The look and feel of the club is very similar, but I would say it's better because it's really the people that made the club what it is, and the vibes there are fantastic. I gotta say, the people who are participating are incredible folks. So what stays the same? It's the people and the things that we're doing over there. So it's summertime. I do know that many folks have migrated already. There's a number that have not. And I know that there's people who won't. And that's totally fine because they weren't the people who were actively participating anyway. We are having our weekly high table sessions, which are really great. I do expect summer to be a little bit quieter because people are busier, especially if you live in a place where it's cold in the wintertime, very cold, then you just tend to want to be out and enjoying the summer as much as possible. So that is completely expected. But a lot of the events are the same. I haven't posted any challenges yet, but that's coming this fall and I'm already planning for that. So a lot of the things do feel the same. And I will be resuming recording some of the private podcast episodes. I'm still working on uploading. I'm also working on uploading all the videos from Chef Adam. He did a number of cooking classes, which I had to pull from the old community manually. So I'm still working on getting those uploaded. And I've found some platforms that I want to upload them from, which add more privacy. And of course, the growers circle has expanded as well. It used to be just one space, but now we have the grow talk, troubleshooting, and show off spaces in that. So that's expanded a little bit because, of course, wherever you have these kitchen witches who are making edibles, you have backyard alchemists. And we need a space for them as well because so many people who grow want to make things with what they grow other than just smoking it or vaping it. And I'm here for all of that. There's a whole resources library now. That's a new feature where companion guides, digital cookbooks live, so you can find them easily. And there is a plant sciences section and a legalization section as well, because those things are constantly changing. Membership has its benefits, my friends. So for the next thing that's coming up is the call for questions for the listener Q&A that I will be recording very soon. I already do have some questions that I've collected from various sources. If you have something that you've always wanted to ask, then this is a great time to do it. Some of the questions that I've already collected are pretty short and they won't take long to answer, but I haven't done a Q&A since I think about 2023. So it's been a while. And of course, the audience has grown since then and it's changed. I want to hear what you want to know. So I believe that episode is coming out mid-August. Having your questions to me by Monday, August the 3rd, 2026. That would be wonderful. If you submit a question and I record before I get it, I'll make sure that it gets answered regardless. But it's always nice because to have it on the show, because obviously if you're asking it, somebody else probably wants to know as well. So you can submit questions by leaving a voice message if you want. You can do that with the fan mail or the podcast hotline. That's one way. And then if you offer permission, I can drop the audio right into the episode, which I think is kind of fun. You can always email me at stayhi@bitemepodcast.com. DM me on Instagram at Bite Me Podcast. There's a number of ways to get a hold of me, and I'll be and that will be in your show notes as well on your app that you're listening to this episode from. Examples of questions. I'm pretty much answering almost anything. Obviously, my area of expertise is edibles specifically and cannabis. It could be dosing confusion. Is this normal? How do I do or accomplish something? I can answer questions about cannabis as well. And you can also send me the questions you've been too embarrassed to ask a dispensary employee. I did work in a dispensary for a couple of years, so I do have some experience around that. If you want to expand beyond that, curiosity about me as a host and podcasting, those are things I'm also willing to answer. I might even answer some personal questions as long as they're respectful. I wouldn't expect anything else from the folks listening to this anyway, but that's some examples of things you might want to ask. I'd love to have 10 solid questions, and right now I'm hovering around 6 or 7. I'd have to look at them again. So note Monday, August 3rd for the deadline. Look for where to submit in the show notes or leave a fan mail. The next thing I wanted to talk about is episode ideas for 2027. I already have all my episodes pretty much mapped out for the rest of the year. But what I would love to know is what kind of episodes would you like? I have thought about covering episodes on the topic of terpenes specifically as it relates to making edibles. That includes the Cedeno method, which we have discussed in the Cannabis Club. There's also an episode that I'm thinking about doing around some of my own personal story around edibles and some situations they helped me through. So that's a little bit more personal. But what would you hope to learn about edibles next year? And where should Bite Me go that it hasn't gone yet? I would love to hear what you think. If there's any recipes you'd like to see me cover or specific guests, I have been working on getting Dr. Riley Kirk on my show or Dr. Miyabi Shields, 2 scientists who are studying cannabis science, but I'm hoping to get them for next year. There's a couple other guests that I'm working on as well. Sometimes guests come together super easily, and sometimes it's a bit more of a give and take or them finding out that I even exist. Sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's not. So if you have any suggestions, ideas, guest ideas that you would like to see or something that you would like to learn about for 2027 episode calendar, You can direct your submissions to the same place as you would a listener Q&A question. And I will consider any and all requests as long as they're reasonable. I mean, if you come to me and say, Margaret, can you get Martha Stewart on your show? As much as I think that would be pretty cool, because I think she's pretty badass and has an interesting story, let's be honest. I'm not getting Martha Stewart on my show. Unless one of you happens to know her personally, then we can talk. But otherwise. To finish off today, friends, I've got over 350 episodes behind me now. I'm absolutely working on updating a lot of the blog posts that I have on the website because, oh God, I mean, I've had the website now for 7 years probably. I wish I knew then what I know now, because I would have done a lot of work on that website very differently. So I've been trying to update pages. And as I'm going through, I find old episode pages that need a little help, but still have a lot of value. And one of those that popped up recently that I've been working on is the Brazilian lemonade post. And I did that episode, that was probably only a couple of years ago, but it's still one of my favorites. And it is one of those hot weather drinks that are so delicious. But it's one that I'm going to be making again. And I just cleaned up that episode page. It seemed very timely. I'm going to be making it. I've linked to it in the show notes in your podcast app, so you can get to it quickly if you want to try it out, because it's hot where you are. And it's a pretty simple recipe. You just need a few ingredients in a blender, and that's it. There's, of course, many other recipes on the website that you can find, and I've been trying to update the recipe pages as well for you so that you can find what you're looking for more easily. The challenges of doing all this as a one-woman show, let me tell you. I love it, to be completely honest. That's it for this week, my friends. I just wanted to update you on some of the things that I'm working on, and the club migration has been a really big one. I would love to have you join the club. I think you would really enjoy the conversations that we have over there, and it really does fulfill that feeling of what I've been looking for a while, which is the two-way conversation, because podcasting is very one-sided. I know there's people out there listening because I'll get messages from folks, but in the club, it's personal. I encourage you to join us because you have something to share. I know it. So that's it for this week, my friends. Your kitchen is the best dispensary that you'll ever have. I'm your host, Margaret. And until next week, stay high.